Hello people, hello, just bear with a sec. I want to make sure that my stream is working. So just bear with me a second. It's been a hectic day, so just allow it. Bear with a sec. Yeah, the stream is working. Good news people, good news. So, if I just quickly, bear with. I'll just tweet that out and then we can get started. And I'll make sure that the sound is working and all good. I don't often do live streams, but I thought I would this time. So let me just make sure the sound is good. I think it should be. So let me just make sure the sound is good. It's alright. Could be better. It should be. So let me just make sure the sound is good. It's alright. Yeah, it will do. It will do. Right, apologies for that. The sound should be sorted now. So, welcome back to another video on the FPL Yellow Army channel. In today's one, we're doing a deadline stream for Gameweek 21. So, any questions you've got ahead of the deadline this evening at 6:15, remember, we'll start the video by saying, of course, there is double game week news for Game Week 25. Manchester City and Brentford will have double game weeks in Game Week 25, and that is due to, of course, because of their Club World Cup game being rescheduled. So, what does that mean? Well, it means Man City will have a double against Brentford and against Chelsea in Game Week 25, and Brentford will have against Man City and against Liverpool, which, to be honest, is not great, is it? So, take that with a pinch of salt. It's not essential you get in your Brentford players. Maybe a City player by Game Week 25 could be a good shout. Also, we've got the potential for a double game week for Liverpool and for also, that's going to mean a blank in 26 for Liverpool. So, a few things to think about, basically. It's all going on, but make sure that you keep aware of it. It's a bit annoying because I made my transfer last night. Now, at least I wasn't, one of those early transfer people early on in the week, because there was a long break, obviously, with the FA Cup games. And going into Game Week 21, I had 2 free transfers because I rolled one of them. So I did the transfer of Mubama to Alvarez, which, to be fair, got me a goal in Game Week 20, so I can't complain too much. But it was kind of like a bit frustrating because I made the transfers in Game Week 21 I ended up doing Saka, and I also did Pascal Gross, right? But I did those moves last night, and what happened was I kind of thought, well, I'm probably pretty set on the Pascal Gross move because I really like Pascal Gross this week in Game Week 21 against Wolves, and going forward, Brighton's fixtures just look too good. Let's just get this camera back. There we go. Nice to see you. It's to see you nice. The fixtures just look too good for Brighton to refuse, and I thought about Estupiñán, thought about João Pedro, but Pascal Gross is that silent assassin, isn't he? And he just ticks along with points, and you just think, why not? And he's differential as well, about 5.5% owned, so I thought, I'm feeling confident with Gross. He's coming in as my little differential pick to kick off 2024. So I brought him in for Son, I think it was, or was it for Salah? No, I think it was for Salah. Basically, my original thought was sell Son and keep Salah on the bench, but that was only if we had the whole situation with Haaland coming back in 22. Now, it looks like that will be the case now because he has been ruled out of the Newcastle game, but the problem lies in the fact that I didn't really like any of the Salah replacements. Like, it was just everyone had their downfall. Richarlison had expected minutes low because of Werner coming in. You had Timo, will he play on the left? Possibly. Will he play out front? We just don't quite know how he's going to fit in. But you would imagine he makes his debut at Old Trafford in Game Week 21. Then you had Foden, who, great pick, of course, but will he play every game up until 26, which is when I want him by? Because, of course, if City do double in 25, there's no guarantee that by the time KDB is back, by the time Haaland is back playing, that De Bruyne maybe will come in and not get many starts, but he will, eventually will play starting games. And so maybe Foden will start alongside De Bruyne, but we don't often see that. And even if Foden is starting those games, okay, that's not bad, but you feel like he will be playing in a less optimal position than he is at the moment in that number 10, whilst KDB is out. And whilst, they've got Alvarez playing instead of Haaland, they could switch that around and basically put, Foden out on the wing. That won't be ideal, really, will it? So it's kind of not ideal at the moment of who those replacements are for Salah and Son. I thought about Diogo Jota as well, but for me, just too risky, because even with Salah gone to AFCON, they've still got a lot of options in that attack, Liverpool. Cody Gakpo being one of them, Harvey Elliott, Darwin Núñez played really well on Wednesday night against Fulham off the bench. And so you just think, well, I ultimately don't know if Jota is the sort of player that when he starts games, he's as effective as when he comes on, because tired legs, chasing the game. And so that's why I just kind of didn't really like the Jota move. It was really weird, because before the game week kind of build-up, I was pretty set on Richarlison. I thought my locked-in transfer would be Son to Richarlison. But then I really gave it some thought and thought, well, I'd like a differential in there for Game Week 21, because, you've got to spice things up. And I really like Pascal Gross. It just kind of grew on me as the week went on. And then when it came to Richarlison, I just had these doubts, these nagging doubts about Timo Werner. Now, of course, I don't think Richarlison's going to get benched straight away, but I just think by Game Week 21... 22, 23, all this time, Maddison could come back in 22. What does that mean for Richarlison? Well, probably good things, because you'd imagine he'll still start. But I just feel like Richarlison, as a Watford fan myself, I know Richarlison well. He does waste a lot of chances, but he is in really good form. So it's that kind of form fixtures debate. The fixtures are not as great for Spurs, maybe as you might think. Man United, okay, that could be okay. Brentford, that could be quite good. Everton, quite a good team at the moment. So it doesn't make it easy. And I just thought, really, who is the one that I'm going to need? And so if you look ahead at my team for Game Week 21, these are the transfers I've ended up making. Now, Haaland will come in Game Week 22. I've got absolutely no doubt about that. But my problem is that I've brought in Saka. Well, I say it's a problem. It's not, because when I think about it, am I confident on the Palmer captaincy? Not really. But at the same time, I think about it and think, I do prefer Saka, so why would I not just bring him in? I've not owned Saka since Game Week 6, right? Sounds pretty crazy, but to be honest, up to this point, I've not had an inclination to do that and get him in, because he's just not been spectacular, has he? He's kind of got a lot of one assist, one goal, not really hauling properly. But in a week where Salah's and Son have gone off to Africa Cup of Nations and the Asia Cup, there's a lack of captaincy options, and it's looking like the two strongest are Cole Palmer and Bukayo Saka. Now, I look at it and think, okay, wasn't a great performance from Chelsea against Middlesbrough on Tuesday night. Not going to read too much into that either, but at the same time, I also think Chelsea, they're just not much of an attack to trust, in my view, this season, outside of Cole Palmer, but you can't expect him to do it on his own every single week. Chelsea have to be, as a system, as an attack, much, much better. So, and I think Fulham defensively are a bit up and down, but also they have done well against good sides. They really held their own against Liverpool early on in that game. And I don't think they're absolutely whipping boys, in terms of defensively. So I think when all's said and done, that really Palmer could do well against Fulham, but I don't think he's going to haul massively, especially when I think Chelsea, are they the most solid attack? Can we trust Chelsea's attack? That is a kind of a debate which isn't clear. So that's why I thought, I'd quite like Saka as an option there. Now, Saka obviously is, you know what you're going to get from him. I talked about Richarlison, Foden, Jota as well. They're all in some ways worries going forward. Now, of course, with Man City's double game week confirmed now, that is a bit of a pain that I didn't get Foden in. But as I said, I wanted to do it last night because I was just pretty set on it. Now, unfortunately, I didn't quite do it in time enough for the price changes. The price changes happened last night and I just missed it. And unfortunately, the price changes happened. Literally, I was confirming the transfers and then it said, transfers can't be made. The prices have just changed. So I was like, there goes 0.2 million because Saka was going up in price, as was Gross. And I think also that maybe someone was dropping, maybe Hwang. I've left Hwang on the bench. We'll get to that when I talk about my Game Week 21 lineup. But look, at the end of the day, Saka, you know what you're going to get from him. He's going to get nailed minutes on penalties, most of the time at least. And ultimately, yeah, all right, Arsenal recently have been frustrating. They've been wasting chances like there's no tomorrow. But at the same time, they are up there for the expected points. And Palace defensively, I'm not been too convinced by them as of late. So I don't hate it, to be honest. I don't hate it. Now, there could be, a bit of a boring side to this, that I bring in the highest owned player in the game and captain him. But I'm just doing it as an effective ownership shield because I genuinely think Saka could do well this game week as captain. I'm just having a look at to see if there's anyone in the comments. Smash some questions in the comments if you've got any, and we will get some answers for you. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, it is hard to say really this game week who the best captaincy is between Saka and Palmer. But I just wanted that second option really because I look at it and think, yeah, there's a chance that Palmer blanks, and then that's my kind of whole game week ruined, so to speak, because it's one of the longest game weeks ever. It feels like that anyway, because it stretches over about 12 days. So you've got the game week deadline tonight at 6:15 in around about half an hour. So get those teams locked in, people. So yeah, it's a weird one. I'll be honest, it's a weird one. But I thought Saka, you know what you're going to get from him. I do trust the Arsenal defence a little bit more, despite the recent form, than someone like Chelsea at the moment. So that's why I'm thinking, in comes Saka for the first time since game week 6, and why not? Why not? Let's see if it works. We'll have to see. Let me just check you guys and see what comments we've got. Any questions you've got for game week 21, put them in the chat right now. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. So, what are we saying then? What are we saying, people? Bear with a sec. Yep, so we've got a couple people in the chat. Smash your questions in the chat. Let me know what dilemmas have you got for game week 21, and I will get you some answers there. So yeah, basically, that's what we're doing. Game week 21. Saka in for Son and Gross in for Salah. Now, what I will say is, I think that this is a good team for Game Week 21. I think. He hopes. Ultimately, those transfers make sense in my head. Now, Richarlison, Foden and Jota, I'm going to have some big FOMO for all three of those, just because a lot of people in the community have gone for those players. And I see the logic now with Foden's double confirmed, but it is what it is. I made the transfer last night, so it is, I can't do much about that now. But I also think, really, it's not a nightmare. It's not the end of the world, but I kind of wish I had waited, because I now think Foden's just going to haul against Newcastle on Saturday. But I've got Anthony Gordon there, so hopefully Anthony can take away some of the damage. And I've got Alvarez. And with KDB obviously looking likely to be on the bench for that Newcastle game, I'm hoping that won't be a problem and we should be fine. We should be good to go. So, yeah, let's talk about Game Week 21 then. So, kicking off with Burnley-Luton. I haven't got anyone in that game. Who would I go for in that game if I wanted to transfer in anyone from Burnley-Luton? Well, not a lot, to be honest. I'll be honest. Both sides out of form and, struggling at the bottom of the league. I would say maybe Alfie Doughty, because he's got a bit of attacking threat at the moment and he's looking in form. But outside of that, I'm not too sure. To be honest, because, yeah, it's one of those things. I don't really rate the the Luton defence at the moment. They're not keeping a lot of clean sheets. Burnley's attack, well, we've got Lyle Foster, but I just don't think he's doing that amazing. I mean, he scored against Villa, but now he's a flagged player, so I don't know. We'll have to see. But what I'm getting at is, I think most people in the community's teams won't have a Burnley or Luton player in the game tonight, so don't worry about it. Don't fret. Don't feel like you just need to get one in for the sake of it. So then we've got the Saturday games: Newcastle, Man City, Chelsea, Fulham. So yeah, Palmer vice captain. Cole Palmer last week obviously got a massive 18-pointer. So that was huge, really. because, a lot of people benched him, which I was surprised by against Luton, anyone against Luton. Um, but yeah, he's a huge captaincy shout, Cole Palmer, this week. I thought about it, but I just fancy Saka. I think, like I said, I think I just trust that Arsenal attack a little bit more, but not by a lot, to be honest. Um, but yeah, I think Chelsea, they could score a few goals against Fulham. We know that this season Chelsea have scored goals in weird games. So sometimes they can't seem to break down the kind of easier teams on paper, but then they'll lose to the weaker teams. That they'll beat get draws with Man City and then not be able to kind of get past the easier side. So Fulham, they're low block. Maybe that might be a tricky one for Fulham to kind of score. Chelsea, they might score a few for Chelsea, but it might be a hard one for them to kind of break down Fulham's team. We'll have to see. But I think ultimately Chelsea will score a few. Palmer will be a good pick for this one. So if you're fancying the captaincy, I'd say go for it. But vice captaincy on Palmer at the moment for me, just because I think there's a good chance that Chelsea game, if for some weird reason some sort of blizzard happened, right, and you had your captain in the game earlier on, and then the game got cancelled, and let's say you didn't have a vice captain playing earlier on, right, then it's a bit of an issue. So I would say if you're captaining Cole Palmer, that's fine. If you're captaining someone playing on later, let's say in the time that's up till now that there's a injury in training, that is very possible. There's a lot of time in between. So I think ultimately that having a captain and vice captain on separate weekends is a very sensible play. It could be disaster could strike. You just never quite know. So I'm going for that. Saka on the captaincy, just because I think, although he doesn't haul a lot, Saka, Palace, I think away from home, they've been much worse defensively than at home. And, the way they looked against Brentford, they didn't look amazing. So I would say, defensively at least, they didn't look, conceded in the first few minutes, right, against Lewis Potter. So I think, Saka's a nice shout. Arsenal, they'll surely have to bounce back. Now, I know we said that after the game against West Ham, and then they had that terrible performance against Fulham. But I don't think that will last for that long. I would be very, very surprised if it did, because ultimately, right, there's a very good side there in the form of Arsenal, and Saka's the kind of main source of their chances, of their goals most of the time. So I just think I'd be very surprised if Saka blanked, and I would imagine that Arsenal's got to get a few. I mean, maybe Arsenal can concede one, because we know recently they've not been great defensively, and Elise is out injured, which I think is a big blow for Crystal Palace in that one. But I think I'm still going to start my two Arsenal defenders, because Gabriel and Saliba, I mean, they are just, ultimately, the best defence in the league, right? And Palace, without Elise, maybe Arsenal will fancy a possible clean sheet there. So I think it makes sense to just go for your Arsenal defenders this week. Now, maybe going forward, you could sell one of them, like Saliba. Now, the problem I've got is going forward, with me getting Saka confirmed this week, it does leave me in a bit of a headache for Gameweek 25. And that headache really is, I can't really get someone like Trent or Jota or Foden. Like, if you just look ahead to Game Week 25, the money in the bank that I've got planned for these future moves, right? Game Week 24, I'll be looking to take out Saliba to then get Konate for his double. Now, that's a risk, because it assumes that by Game Week 24, Konate will be nailed. We'll have to see. But obviously, the problem arises where Game Week 25, I'm going to want Salah back. And I do kind of want someone doubling outside of Haaland, right, along with Salah, and I can't afford it. So I'm thinking I'm going to probably have to sell Trippier at some point around this time. So if I sold Trippier, say, in Game Week 23, and got someone a lot cheaper, let's say a Villa defender, because they've got Sheffield United that week. So if I went for a, Konza, for instance, right, you think, okay, don't mind that, that's a decent shout, and you can just play Taylor against Fulham, bench Saliba against Liverpool, no problem, right? Then you get a bit more money for that week, that's not an issue. We can just play Konza against Man United, fine, not an issue. And then you think, Game Week 25, then it's zero in the bank. But that's for me to get Bernardo, right? So I kind of have to settle to not have a second City in Game Week 25, which is not great. I did kind of think about Foden, but as I said, really fancy the captaincy on Saka this week. So if Palmer ends up hauling, and I just wish I would have captained Palmer in Game Week 21, and I think, well, why have I just done Saka just for captaincy, and then Saka blanks in all this time, then I will be gutted. I will be absolutely gutted. But I look at it and think, well, Konate, I'm going to want to play him, so I'll probably bench Konza in 25. But it just relies on Konza being nailed by then, and there's no guarantee of that. Obviously, City defenders as well, there's no guarantee of that either. So it leaves a bit of a conundrum. Now, as I've said, I fancied Saka this week. Sometimes when you just feel it feels right, and that's why I went for it. But I don't know, maybe it was a bit reckless. We'll have to see if that is the case going forward. But then, yeah, I kind of think Game Week 21, the fixtures are interesting. If we just have a little look at the fixtures for the Game Week 21 deadline. Now, obviously this is not updated, so ignore this. But the deadline, obviously, being that Burnley-Luton game, then Chelsea-Fulham, Palmer should do well, you'd think. Maybe a Chelsea defender. If you've got a Colwill, you'd probably bench Chelsea defenders most weeks. But home to Fulham, I think that's the sort of game where you can probably play them. And then maybe someone like a Jimenez if you're fancying a differential shout, because at the end of the day, Chelsea's defence recently this season, I know I've just talked about Colwill, but they're just not exactly ripping up trees defensively, are they, Chelsea? So I think keeping faith in some of your differential captains, but someone like a Jimenez could be a shout. Then you look at that Man City Newcastle game. I don't have Foden, so I'm a bit worried. I've got Alvarez there now. If Alvarez could stay nailed up until Game Week 25, then brilliant. But the problem I've got is Haaland, of course, has to come back in Game Week 22 against Burnley, so I don't really have a choice. I have to sell him in 22, Alvarez. As much as I'd want some doubling City attackers in 25, it's looking at this point like it's going to have to be only Haaland. So not ideal from me. A bit of a mistake on my part. I shouldn't have gone for Saka because, yes, the captaincy was tempting this week, but I should have thought ahead. Foden was the one, but I just don't know if he's going to be nailed by then. So the way I look at it is I've gone for kind of a bit of how do I put it, a zen approach to Game Week 21, because I've brought in, to try and keep myself peace of mind, two players who are pretty nailed, Pascal Gross and Bukayo Saka, both on set piece duty. You got basically every set piece of Pascal Gross outside of penalties for that Wolves game should hopefully be good. And then Saka, we know how good Saka can be on his day, and he's on pens if he's nice enough and doesn't, take us down the troll route again and gives it to Odegaard or whoever. So I think there's logic to that when you've got expected minutes risks for all the other options to replace Son and Salah. The problem I have is when it comes to Game Week 25. So because of that, if I'm not feeling my team optimal for Game Week 25, there's a chance I free hit in Game Week 25 just to get Salah back. Now, because of the fact that Salah's blanking in Game Week 26, then I would just try and get him back with 2 free transfers in Game Week 27. So if I free hitted in, say, Game Week 25, rolled in Game Week 26, and then used 2 frees to get Salah back in 27, is that right? Yeah. Then I could just do that. And that is a thing I'm definitely contemplating because of this thing I've just had now with, I'm not looking great for Game Week 25 double. I haven't got 3 City players. I haven't got 3 Liverpool. I haven't got any Liverpool at the moment. So, I'm obviously going to want Salah, but it'd be lovely to have Trent. And I can't afford Trent unless I go for a free hit in 25. So, I really don't love it because my original chip strategy was to be triple captain in Game Week 25. And there will be other opportunities, of course, to triple captain. But I just wonder, in my situation, now that I've brought in Saka, it is what it is. What's done is done. Relying on a Konate or a cheaper Man City doubling defender and going without another City attacker in that double, no Trent either, might be a less optimal way of going around things. Now, if Saka can score me all these goals in the kind of game week leading up to and beyond Game Week 26, then the strategy kind of, if I free hit and then it's a bad free hit, then if Saka can do really well, then that will kind of balance things out and it will be not as bad. I'll kind of reduce some of the damage. But what I will say is there is going to be a lot of people free hitting in Game Week 29. So using up my Game Week free hit for 25 might leave me really, really short for 29. But then again, I could always bring forward the wild card to deal with 29. So if I want to say wild card in 28 and set up for that, then perfect. Then I can get through the blank, maybe bench boost after 30, and then Bob's your uncle chip strategy done. So I kind of really looked at that game week 25 double game week to think, oh, that's the best week to triple captain. But with my team situation now, the way I've done it with Saka's kind of coming in, let's just hope Saka hauls big time, is I might have to free hit in 25 now. So, yeah, maybe a bit reckless, maybe a bit clever. We'll have to see. Only one way to find out, I suppose. But Areola, Sheffield United away, please keep a clean sheet. Against West Ham, you know, Sheffield United, they might fancy their chances because of Areola's kind of not many clean sheets this season, and also the fact that there's no Bowen, there's no Paqueta, there's no Kudus for that West Ham game. But they have got a few clean sheets recently, West Ham, against Brighton, against Man United, against Arsenal. So logic would have that against the team's worst team in the league, that West Ham can somehow muster a clean sheet, even if they don't score any goals, which, to be honest, I'm happy. That's fine. I don't own a West Ham attacker. I haven't owned Bowen for a few weeks, and he's been killing my rank. So the fact he's now missing the Sheffield United game is kind of a relief for me, to be honest, as a non-owner. So if Sheffield United could just, you know, not score, that would be much appreciated. Then on the back three, I've got Gabriel and Saliba there together. Now, I have thought about playing Taylor tonight, just because, yes, there's a good chance he misses out, but what if he does play, and that's a chance of a clean sheet? And if he doesn't get any minutes, then fine, Saliba or Gabriel could sub in for him, or Trippier, of course. But I look at it and think, double Palace, double Arsenal defence against Palace, I'm going to back that because it's Arsenal, but there's a very good chance that Luton don't score, and if Taylor's got any chance of playing, which we just don't know simply because Company was being a bit of a Scrooge and didn't give any info on the kind of situation with their injuries. I mean, he had, you know, legends like Foster, you had people like Taylor, all these important players for our FPL teams, and Company just like doing his best Pep Guardiola impressions. So a bit frustrating. I'm not going to lie, a bit frustrating, but you know, it is what it is. So look, at the end of the day, it's not ideal, but I think I'm going to bench Taylor because there wasn't enough to give me kind of reason to end up going with him. I don't know. I kind of think Arsenal, surely it will come good eventually. I mean, they came good against Brighton a few weeks back, but that was the one-off. Palace, they could score. I could get another Arsenal defensive clean sheet wipeout, but I'm going to back it, and let's see what we do. You know, at the end of the day, the fixture's probably better Luton at home than Palace at home, but you got to back the better defence most of the time. So that's why I'm gone with the Arsenal too. Saliba and Man United, Porro against Man United. Attacking upside, genuinely not worried about that fixture. Alright, United could get a couple, but at the end of the day, the way that United are, you know, defending at the moment, that's an attack and return potential for Pedro Porro. So I'm not too fussed about that. I think Romero is still injured, I believe. So I'm not too confident of a Spurs clean sheet. I think, you know, Garnacho's been okay recently. Obviously, they've got Fernandes, Rashford. So I don't think it's going to nailed on clean sheet for Spurs. But, you know, they've obviously got their new signing, Draguson, come in. I think Spurs could do okay in this game, and Porro especially. Don't rule him out. With Porro, I think he's the sort of player you just play in any game. You know, with fixtures, they have great fixtures. So why would you do anything else, basically? That's my approach with the season so far. With these attacking fullbacks, even if they've got bad games, there's a good chance they get attacking returns. So I don't hate it. Midfield, then, we talked about Palmer already, talked about Saka. Gordon against Man City. Now, I had a little think, do I go with Gordon or do I go with Trippier? Hang on, just bear with a sec. I need to check something, people. Bear with a sec.
Norwich Harveston in game week 21, sell Richie in double game week for a doubler in 25, or roll, get Madison in 22 and sell him in 25. So this one's tough because of the two of them this week, I get Foden in. The reality is, though, if you get Foden in, you're absolutely having to hold him then all the way through the double game week, which is fine. and I think that's what you do. But then that does kind of stop you from what you're saying, from getting to Maddison or somebody else that you might want to go to. So I guess you might just have to look at the rest of your midfielders lots and see who else is potential to be sold if you want to get Maddison once he's fit and available. I don't think Maddison will be 22, by the way. I think he's probably going to be 23. I really hope he's 22, but I suspect it will be more like 23.
Okay, cheers for that, FPL Families, Sam Bonfield. That's helpful advice. Although I've gone against all of that planning and ended up bringing in, Saka. So it is what it is. Let's also see some great advice from Trophy FPL Mo, the legend that is Trophy FPL. What has he said? Oh, okay, brilliant. He hasn't actually given his advice. That's really helpful. He had recorded a video, but now he's not released it. Great. Okay, whatever. Is what it is. Yeah, sure. All right. We move. Well, in that case, going back to what we were talking about, we were talking about Gordon. Yeah. So Man City at home. Look, at the end of the day, when all's said and done, that is not a bad fixture, I think, for an attacker, because it's Man City, right? We know how many they concede, and Newcastle, admittedly, their form has been pretty awful as of late, but do I get worried about that fixture? And Newcastle, admittedly, their form has been pretty awful. Sorry, just checking the sound was still working. Yeah, look, I'm not worried about that fixture for Gordon, genuinely. Not that worried, and do I think that Newcastle attackers are a sell? Probably not. I've got Gordon, he's got Luton, Nottingham Forest coming up, so I'm happy with him there. Hopefully he does more than Trippier, because if Spurs, if Newcastle keep a clean sheet, that'll be a bit of a gutting one. Because, of course, I've talked about Areola against what you'd think is the best team for a clean sheet in the league, and up against the worst team in the league for a clean sheet, Man City, Newcastle. And it'll be typical FPL, wouldn't it, if Newcastle kept a clean sheet. But, I'm backing the attack over the defence at the moment. So, yeah, Gordon, fine. Honestly, genuinely fine. He's not an essential sell, and he's also not an essential buy. He's one of those players, if you've had him all this time, there's no reason to take him out, because he's just one of the best value options in this season's game. So I like him. I don't know what his ownership is. It's probably not that high at the moment, because a few people might have jumped off, obviously, if they bought Foden, players like that. So, yeah, don't mind it at all. Now, Gross. My guy Pascal Gross. I've talked him up in this video, and I tell you, I think he could do bits, genuinely, in that game against Wolves, because he's still very lowly owned. It's quite amazing, really, how consistent he's been with points, and not many people would bring him in. He was 5.5% owned. Now he's 6.5% owned. That is quite a downgrade from what he was originally. Fair enough. Didn't expect that, to be fair. But no, Pascal Gross, Wolves, defensively this season, Wolves have just not been great, have they? Let's be honest. So I'm not at all concerned about that fixture for Pascal Gross. And yeah, I think ultimately there's a good chance that Pascal Gross does well this week. I don't see him hauling all the time. Like, he'll get consistent, steady Eddie points. But to be honest, as I was talking about earlier on in the video, when there are these players with minutes risks, I'm like, just give me someone that's nailed, and that is what Pascal Gross is. So I don't mind it. I think it's got potential to pay off. Obviously, now he's a bit more kind of high owned than I thought, 6.5, but he's still under 10% owned, so he's a bit of a differential. And if he comes in, then obviously that's going to be really beneficial to my rank. Whereas players like Foden, who's about 26% owned, players like, I'm trying to think some other examples now, but there's quite a lot of examples of players who really, they're not massively going to affect your rank. But Pascal Gross, if he comes good, he could be really good. Watkins away to Everton. I thought about maybe captaining Watkins, but realistically, would I ever have done it? Probably not. Watkins, he's got that potential to haul in any game. We know that. But Everton are a team I genuinely think defensively are better now. Their kind of XG conceded numbers are quite surprisingly good. But Watkins can return in any game. Now, I prefer Villa at home, so that's why he wasn't really my captaincy thoughts. But, I don't hate the captaincy shout for Watkins. I think you could go to much kind of worse options. So, yeah, he's not a bad shout. I just think when there's, penalty takers, midfielders, captaincy shouts, and they get the extra point for a goal and a clean sheet, that sort of thing. That's why I'm just edging towards, either Saka or Palmer. It'd be funny, wouldn't it, if I brought in Saka all this week and then I didn't end up captaining him and I captained Palmer anyway. No, I think I'm going to stick with Saka. I think my gut just tells me if Palmer goes wrong, which it might not, maybe it won't, but then it's the first it's only the second game of the game week, and then Saka's kind of the second half of the game week, so there's a kind of potential for that to be painful if it goes wrong, you know what I mean? But it's not just a psychological point of view. I genuinely trust the Arsenal attack more than Chelsea, and I think maybe the recent form from Palace away from home defensively has been slightly worse. I mean, Fulham's defence all season has not been great. Let's be honest, I think Fulham have been slightly worse of the two defences, but on current form, I think Arsenal, they've got to bounce back. Chelsea, they are a bit of an inconsistent team. At least with Arsenal, prior to this sticky run, they're always a team you kind of know how they're going to play, but they also are capable of bouncing back, and they have some sort of consistency most of the time, obviously outside of recent. Whereas Chelsea, are they consistent at all? Not at the moment for me. So that's why I'm just thinking, I think having that safety blanket, having that star boy Saka as captain, makes a lot of sense for my team this week. So it's a new year, it's a new dawn, it's a new life, and my first transfers of 2024 are Saka and Gross for Mr. Son Heung-min and Mohamed Salah. So yeah, look, at the end of the day, Alvarez is there as well. I think he's going to start the Newcastle game with, looking likely that Foden will, but KDB on the bench most likely, so that opens up a spot for Julian Alvarez. And Haaland obviously being out injured, we know that Alvarez will play. So yeah, I think Alvarez, if he takes more free kicks, maybe even penalties, we'll have to see, because obviously they have had penalties shared around a little bit between different players. Maybe even Foden could take them, we just don't know. When Haaland's not in the team, it's quite hard to guess who's going to take penalties. But you never know, could be Alvarez, we'll have to see. Solanke, Liverpool, I think that is actually not a bad fixture. I know Liverpool have been one of the better defences this season in terms of kind of XG conceded. A bit like Arsenal, they've been a very solid defence, Liverpool. But at the same time, I don't think that's an issue, really. I don't think that's anything to worry about massively. I think the way that Arsenal are going, they are one of the best defences, and they're still conceding. So Liverpool are the same. Like Bournemouth being at home, yeah, that's quite nice. And there's that kind of narrative behind, Solanke obviously playing against his former side. So I don't mind that at all, actually. So that's why I've gone for him starting. I think Solanke's just the sort of one you got to start every week, regardless of fixture, because when he's on pens, he's got potential to return in any game. So 5-minute warning till the deadline. So lock in those teams, people, for game week 21. So then we've got up next, Trippier's on the bench. Just don't get a free kick and score it, Trippier. That would just be so painful. Taylor on the bench, just because I'm just not confident. I mean, to be fair, the way that Burnley's defence is going at the moment, they're not keeping clean sheets anyway. But yeah, there's a potential for a clean sheet, but I just don't think he'll play. I'd just be very surprised if he did. And then Hwang Hee-chan, he's left in there at the moment, Hwang Hee-chan, just because I've got no urge really to get rid. Now, of course, that sounds crazy when he's obviously off at the Asian Cup, but when I think about it, the reason I sold Son and Salah was for funds, basically, for future weeks. Now, it turns out, because I've got Saka, who's quite expensive as well, those funds haven't actually amounted to much. But if I'd have ended up selling Hwang instead of someone like Son or Salah, that's even less money. So I genuinely think taking out the money made sense. Obviously, I would have been able to do Alvarez to Haaland anyway next week. But as I fancied Saka, I've just gone with that. So I think it's not too shabby. I think there's potential for Hwang to go in a future week. Or I might actually probably just leave him there until game week 26, because they have Sheffield United, which is a really nice fixture. And I want him probably because he's been so good this season for me. He's been my little gem of a differential. So I just don't see why I need to sell him really. So yeah, third on the bench. If I need some strength depth in terms of my bench in the coming weeks, then he can go, but it's not essential for me at the moment. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. That's my game week 21. Captaincy's pretty set, and currently in terms of my overall rank, obviously the kind of plan for the next few weeks, this is the sort of situation we're doing. I am a bit worried about the Game Week 25 deadline because I might have myself a situation where I either take loads of -12 hits or play the free hit in 25, which is not is very far from ideal because let's see what the situation is. Who knows? By Game Week 25, Foden, Bernardo Silva, they might all be injured, and then we don't want any City doublers. But I definitely want at least one other doubler outside of Salah and Haaland. So that's why at the moment it looks like it's going to be Konate. Let's just hope he's going to be nailed in all that time because Van Dijk obviously was missing recently, I think. Also Matip, Van Dijk came back, but Matip is out injured for a while, I think. So I would imagine Konate keeps playing. I don't see why not. They've got Gomez, but I don't think they'll play him at centre-back. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. It makes a lot of sense to me. But it's in terms of kind of my game weeks, the last 2 weeks, remember 3 minutes till deadline. Not long now to lock in those teams. So get ready to lock them in. So that's my kind of my team, my plans going forward. And then my plan would be probably if I got in Konate in Game Week 24, then it would be to sell Konate in 20. Actually, I was going to say sell Konate, but if I free hit in 25, basically, then I won't need Konate, right? Because I won't need to buy him in 24 if he's not going to double in 25. If I'm not going to pick him and Trent's going to be there anyway. So my point is, if I don't end up free hitting in 25, which I kind of do want to be the situation because it's not the optimal week to free hit if it's triple captain time. Then, if I don't free hit, then I will be selling Konate in 26 because, of course, Liverpool will blank that week, so I'll need a playing bench. So that's my situation. I'll probably get in like a Palace defender in 26 or something, like a Mitchell. But yeah, my overall rank 302k. We're looking pretty good at the moment, and the last few weeks have been some nice green arrows. We, of course, did our Game Week 20 review in the last video, so check that out if you missed it. But look, we're sitting pretty, obviously. 96 points last week was very, very welcome. Let's just hope for another big game week from Mr. Cole Palmer, and, of course, an even bigger game week from the legend, Mr. Bukayo Saka. So that is a team locked in for game week number 21, the longest game week of all time. Let's hope it's not a painful game week because that would just not be very nice, would it? So let's hope for that. But fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. But I hope you have enjoyed my Game Week 21 deadline stream. Smash a like on it. If you're not watching this live, no problem. Just, I'd love to get some comments in the section below. Feedback on the stream. This is the first stream I've done in a while, kind of live, other than pre-recorded. It's quite tricky for me with the kind of technology I've got here. But yeah, that's what we've gone for. So hopefully you did enjoy it. And I'll see you in the next one, people. Happy Game Week 21. And may all your green arrows come around. Let's see how 2024 really kicks off.